What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Roman's Creative Academy. As always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue the rent-to-own saga. But this time, we're going to tell you how we will make $100K plus with just one rent-to-own.
Absolutely.
This is going to be juicy.
Hell yeah, I love this. This is awesome. So 3 things that we want you guys to know about rent-to-own just starting off.
I want to say the 3 myths, right? The myths about rent-to-own that keep circulating, from sellers to investors who want to do it but aren't quite sure of hey, is this legit? If you're like us, we actually care about the people who buy the homes from us, right?
Yep.
So myth number 1. The tenant will buy you out in 1 year. So you will lose that quote unquote door in 1 year. That's wrong.
Yep. A lot of times tenant buyers take anywhere from 2 to 5 years or more to actually buy you out. A lot of times they get complacent and they stay. And instead of the owner or you as the seller to that tenant buyer asking him to leave at the end of the term, we just renegotiate the purchase price, we readjust it, we increase their rent, and we continue moving on, and we build in our own equity without having to do turnover, right? Now, the second one,
which leads into that, he just said it, is that there is a lot of turnover with rent to own because they don't actually buy you out. And in reality, it's how you structure your program of rent to own. If you're that crummy landlord that says you have 1 year to buy me out or I'm kicking you out and keeping your down payment, then you're not really setting them up for success, right? So obviously that falls on you as the professional investor to help them. Now, it's a different story if they don't do the work that they need to be able to do that, to be able to buy you out. And then the last myth, do you have anything to say to that?
Nope, I was just going to say, and then the last myth is that the rent, a lot of people think that the rent that the tenant buyer is paying you goes towards the purchase price. That is not a rent-to-own or a lease option. That is a different style of exit. For a rent-to-own, the rent that they're paying you every month is just rent, right? If that rent goes towards the purchase price, it is not a rent-to-own or a lease option. That is something else that we can get into on another day.
Yep. So if you're part of our newsletter, you are going to get some golden nuggets. And if you aren't, check the link below and sign up for our weekly newsletter. We give out so much information aside from obviously these videos. We get really in depth, which brings me to my next point of what not to do with rent to own, right? Because there are things where you shouldn't do, and we figured out by taking action. So we're here to tell you what they are so you don't freaking do them too, right? So numero uno, never, ever, ever take first, last, and security deposit as a down payment.
That is very small. We need you to take at least a 7 to 10% down payment. If you want a 10% down payment or more, you will get it, but you're going to have probably anywhere from 3 to 6 months of holding costs. If you're willing to take a little bit less, you will have the ability to get it rented with a tenant buyer very fast. The only thing is, just like Jay said, do not accept the low down payments because you're going to get a low quality tenant buyer.
And with that being said, the next one we're going to talk about, which I hold very close to my heart, is the handyman special. This has been thrown around of, hey, if the house needs maybe a fresh, coat of paint or new flooring put down, don't do it because if they don't like the floor you pick, they're just going to rip it out and redo it again. In theory, that sounds great, right? But in reality, Mike?
It is going to turn into a disaster. Reason being is that tenant buyer, if you are marketing a handyman special and you're saying, I'm going to get a handyman or a contractor to come, typically that's not what's going to happen. Typically, you're going to get what we call a quote unquote handyman family to come in, right? Meaning that they are not going to fix that house up. They're not going to take care of it. And they are going to treat it the same way that it was presented to them on day one, like shit, right? So what does that mean? You're going to have a shitty tenant buyer who is not going to respect you or the house. How do we know? We've been through it, right? We had a handyman house. We'll talk about that in a newsletter, and we'll get into all that.
Like deep into what happened there.
Yep.
And how we were able to pull ourselves out of that situation.
So take our advice. Handyman specials are not...
a no-go.
Yep. If you're going to do something, make the house presentable, just like you would with a rental. When that tenant walks in, do they say, oh, wow, it smells nice in here? Oh, wow, it looks nice in here. Wow, it's really clean. Or when they walk in, they're going to say, God damn, this place needs a lot of work, but I see the vision. And then they have to give you 10% down, which is most likely a lot of their savings. So you tell me, where are they going to get the money to fix the house up to? Just keep that in mind. If they had all of this money, they'd probably go to the bank and get a loan.
Absolutely. And the last one, which I think surprises everyone when we talk about it, is do not do a rent-to-own with a pool. Reason being is that house isn't theirs yet. With rent-to-own, yes, it's known that they do the maintenance, repairs, all of that, because we want to treat them like homeowners. But in reality, do they treat or take care of things like maybe you do, I do, Mike does? We don't know.
And a lot of times, just think about it. It's a liability, right? Let's just say the house has a pool. Maybe the family has had a pool for years and they love it and they know exactly what to do with it. But they have a kid. That kid runs out, falls in the pool, God forbid, drowns. It's your house. You are technically the landlord in a rent-to-own. You're going to get sued. It's your house. It's your pool.
So let's lighten this mood up and actually talk about the ways that we make money with our rent-to-owns, right? Because this is what we're here for. We want to know, Mike, Jay, like, how are you making money, you know? And there's 4 main ways that we profit from just one rent-to-own. So imagine 4x on one property.
Typically, with a long-term rental, you're only making money in the old school 4 ways: appreciation, depreciation, debt pay down, cash flow. Well, the 4 that we have for rent to own are different, and they help you out way more. So with the 4 ways that we make money on rent to owns is 1, the initial down payment from the tenant buyer. That's your quick cash, kind of like a wholesale fee that you get up front. Second is your monthly cash flow or your rent payment. There's no reserves, meaning that your cash flow is going to be a lot higher because you don't have to set aside for all the extra reserves that you typically would. Every single one of our tenant buyers pays over the monthly rent, so they can accumulate a down payment much faster than they would by just giving it all up front, meaning our cash flow goes through the roof, right? And then debt pay down and our built-in appreciation from when they go and buy the house out from us with that rent-to-own purchase price.
So that check we get at closing when we sell it to them.
So on one of our rent-to-owns, we have a few, and this is just one example of one because I just love this house. It performs great. It's going to perform great when it sells. Over the course of 5 years, we're going to make $146,000 based off of those 4 things: from the down payment, from the cash flow, from the from the debt pay down, and from that back end check.
And if you didn't watch that video, Mike breaks down the numbers of how it differs from our regular rental, which is an identical property. So go check it out if you haven't done so already. We'll link it below as well. But those are really the four main ways that we make money off of our rent to own. Now, that's not even to say that we don't have to put money into fixing it. They're fixing everything. So take that away, right?
I'll give you, this is a little bit of a bonus before we get into what can you guys do in order to do this. This bonus, two things. One, our tenant buyer on this property that we're going to make $146,000 on called us one day and said, "Hey Mike, hey Jay, the bathroom is leaking. Do you have anybody that you could recommend to help to come over and fix it, or that I can call?" Gave them their number, texted me a few days later, "Hey Mike, it's all fixed. Thanks, I really appreciate it. He was great." Our long-term rental, which is also in the last video that you'll watch, we get a call. "Hey Mike, the shower in the bathroom's leaking for 2 weeks. I meant to tell you, but I forgot. The ceiling in the kitchen is about to cave in because it's full of water," right? And then lastly, also the back wall is kind of falling down. And can you come and fix it? Oh, and by the way, the fridge stopped working too. Who pays for all that? Who fixes all that? Us.
He's making us sound like slumlords, but in reality, we do monthly walkthroughs. But that's what 1 month can do to a property.
You can see the difference between the tenants. The tenant buyer loves and cares for the property. The rental tenant didn't even tell us that there was something wrong. That's the difference. One cares, one doesn't, because it's going to be their property one day while the other one is just living there. So that's the difference between the two. You will have a lot more longevity out of your homes. They will be treated right, and you will get really good people to live and reside in there. Now, guys, what can you do next in order to take these great steps and for you to be successful in this?
If they sparked any questions in your mind, check the link of Ask Us Anything. We love to answer your questions live on Instagram. So please, please, please utilize that link and ask us any questions that pop up when you're listening to these videos. That's below. But if you're like, Mike, Jay, like, I want to learn more about rent to own. I want to do rent to own. I want to convert my single families into rent to owns. Can I learn from you? Apply to work with us below as well. We teach you how to couple buying with creative financing and selling with rent to own, which is a form of creative financing. So we would love to chat. Just reach out. And then lastly, of course, we do these videos for you guys, so make sure you like them, you comment on them, letting us know what you liked about them, and also hit that bell so that you can get notifications when we drop them. See you next week, guys.
Have a good one.